Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora's edge and watched the stars through the main view screen. His hands gripped a command chair as the final message from Earth Command played again on his personal tablet. The words were simple, but they changed everything for humanity. The Galactic Council had given their ultimatum 3 days ago. All humans must leave their colonies and return to Earth within 6 months. They called it protective custody for a developing species. Jake knew it was something much worse than that. Admiral Lisa Carter appeared on the main screen from her flagship above Earth. Her face looked tired, but her voice stayed strong. She had made the hardest decision any human leader ever faced. Humanity would not fight this war. They would leave quietly and let the aliens think they had won. Jake looked around his bridge crew. Commander Ryan Brooks worked at the navigation station. Dr. Nicole Webb checked her scientific instruments. Lieutenant Sam Tucker monitored communications. These people had become his family during 5 years of deep space exploration. Now they would help humanity disappear. The Aurora's Edge was one of 40 exploration ships spread across human space. Each ship carried the same secret orders. They would collect every human from every colony and research station. They would destroy, or take every piece of human technology. The aliens would find nothing useful when they arrived to claim their prize. Ryan turned from his station with a grim smile. The navigation computer showed their route to the Kepler 442b research facility. 200 scientists worked there studying exotic matter and quantum physics. They had made discoveries that could change the galaxy. Now those discoveries would leave with them. Nicole looked up from her scanner readings. The research facility appeared on the long-range sensors. It sat on a small moon orbiting a gas giant in a system the aliens thought was worthless. They were wrong about many things regarding human capabilities. The ship moved through space toward the facility. Jake opened a channel to speak with all his crew. He told them about Protocol Exodus. For 20 years, humanity had prepared for this day. Hidden shipyards and asteroid fields had built vessels the aliens never detected. Mining operations that seemed normal were actually construction sites for the largest ships humanity had ever made. Admiral Carter had planned for humanity to need a new home someday. The galaxy was dangerous and humans were still weak compared to the 12 alien civilizations in the Council. But humans had advantages the aliens did not understand. They could adapt. They could hide. They could wait. The Aurora's Edge docked with the research facility. Jake watched through security cameras as his crew worked with the scientists to pack everything important. Quantum computers went into special storage containers. Research data transferred to encrypted storage devices. Every experiment shut down and every sample secured. Dr. Webb worked with the facility's chief scientist, Dr. Alan Pierce. They destroyed the equipment they could not take. The aliens would find empty laboratories and worthless scrap metal. The real treasures of human science would travel to the void sectors where humanity would rebuild. Ryan coordinated with other ships across human space. The cargo vessel Freedom's Promise collected colonists from farming worlds. The transport ship New Horizon evacuated mining operations on asteroid bases. Military vessels like the Sovereign Authority gathered weapons and supplies from hidden armories. Each ship followed careful timing. The aliens watched human space, but they did not expect coordinated action. They thought humans were simple and disorganized. This mistake would cost them more than they could imagine. Jake received reports from across the evacuation zone. Captain Elena Rodriguez had cleared the research stations in the Tau Ceti system. Commander Bill Harrison evacuated the manufacturing facilities near Proxima Centauri. Major Patricia Wells led the military evacuation from bases the aliens never knew existed. The work continued for weeks. Humans disappeared from their colonies like morning mist. The aliens saw cargo ships leaving human worlds and assumed people was simply moving to Earth as ordered. They did not realize the ships changed course once they left sensor range. Admiral Carter coordinated everything from Earth Command. She sent false reports to the Galactic Council showing human compliance with their demands. Meanwhile, she activated sleeper agents across Council space. These agents had waited years for their orders. Now they began gathering intelligence on alien weaknesses. Nicole finished her work at the research facility. Every piece of valuable equipment was packed. Every computer wiped clean, every trace of human presence removed or destroyed. She looked around the empty laboratories that had been her home for 3 years. Soon alien scientists would arrive. To find nothing, Ryan plotted their course to the rendezvous point. The void sectors lay beyond the edge of council space. These regions contained dark matter concentrations and spatial anomalies that made them dangerous to navigate. The aliens avoided them completely. This made them perfect for humanity's new beginning. Jake authorized departure from the facility. The Aurora's Edge undocked and moved away. Behind them, the automated systems began their final shutdown sequence. In 6 hours, the facility would go dark. The aliens would find a cold and empty research station with no clues about what had been. Studied there, the ship joined a convoy of other vessels heading toward the galaxy's edge. Cargo ships heavy with supplies, transport vessels full of colonists, military ships protecting the evacuation fleet. Together they carried the future of human civilization away from the worlds they had called home. Admiral Carter sent one final message to all evacuation ships. She reminded them that this was not retreat but strategic repositioning. Humanity would use this time to grow stronger. They would develop new technologies in secret. When they returned to the galaxy, it would be as equals to any alien species. Jake understood the plan now. The aliens thought they had removed a threat by forcing humans back to Earth. Instead, they had created a much larger problem for themselves. Humanity would return from the void with capabilities the Council could not imagine, the Aurora's Edge, past the last navigation beacon at the edge of human space. Ahead lay the unknown regions where humanity would forge its new destiny. Behind them, the aliens prepared to divide up empty colonies and worthless facilities. Jake smiled as he watched the stars change outside his viewscreen. The Galactic Council thought they had won a great victory. They had no idea they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Humanity had departed quietly, but they would not stay gone forever. Council Speaker Zathara stood before the great assembly hall on the Council. Homeworld of Nexus Prime, the massive chamber held representatives from 12 alien civilizations that controlled most of the galaxy. Today they celebrated their greatest victory without firing a single shot. The humans had surrendered completely. Every colony evacuated, every military base abandoned, every research facility shut down and empty. Zathara looked out at the assembled delegates and felt deep satisfaction. The troublesome species that had worried them for decades was finally contained. Ambassador Tormesh of the Andorian Federation raised his 6 arms in approval. His people had always been cautious about human expansion. Humans built colonies too quickly and asked too few questions about territorial boundaries. Now the problem was solved peacefully. The Vorthan Collective's representative clicked its metallic claws together in their version of applause. The insectoid species had watched human industrial growth with growing concern. Human manufacturing techniques were primitive but surprisingly effective. Soon those techniques would serve the collective. Instead, Zathara activated the holographic display that showed former human space. 47 star systems now waited for new management. Rich mining worlds, fertile agricultural planets, strategic locations along major trade routes. The humans had chosen their territories well, but they lacked the strength to keep them. The division of human territories had been planned for months. The Catherian Empire claimed the systems closest to their border. Their reptilian warriors had always respected human military spirit, but new humans could never match Catherian technology and discipline. The ethereal Commonwealth selected the former research colonies. These floating energy beings found human scientific curiosity amusing but limited. They would continue the research with proper methods and superior understanding of galactic science. Governor Haxtell of the reptilian hegemony reviewed the colony assignments on his datapad. His people would take control of the agricultural worlds. Human farming methods were crude, but the soil on these planets was remarkably fertile. With proper hegemony techniques, they could double food production, the economic projections showed. Incredible profits for all council members. Trade routes that humans had developed but barely used would now carry massive cargo flows between council worlds. Industrial facilities that humans operated at half capacity would soon run at maximum efficiency under alien management. Admiral Vexiran of the Catherian military presented security reports to the Assembly. A few human ships had been detected near the edge of Council space, but they appeared to be heading toward the Galactic Rim. Probably refugees looking for uninhabited worlds where they could hide. The Admiral assured everyone that these scattered groups posed no threat. The celebration continued as delegates shared stories about human weaknesses they had observed. Humans were too emotional and made poor strategic decisions. They formed attachments to places and people that made them vulnerable. They refused to accept their proper place in the galactic hierarchy. Zathara announced the timeline for taking control of human territories. Military forces would secure the strategic systems first. Economic teams would follow to assess resources and facilities. Finally, civilian administrators would arrive to begin full operations under Council authority. The first reports from the advanced teams were encouraging. Human colonies were exactly as abandoned as they appeared. No hidden defenses. No booby traps. No signs of resistance. The humans had truly accepted defeat and departed completely. Captain Dexara of the Nexarian Trade Guild examined the shipping manifests from former human space. The cargo routes were more extensive than anyone had realized. Humans had been quietly building a trade network that connected distant regions of the galaxy. Now that network would serve council interests. The infrastructure humans left behind was surprisingly sophisticated. Orbital stations, manufacturing facilities, communication networks, transportation systems. Most of it was built with inferior human technology, but the basic structure was sound. With upgrades, it would serve council needs perfectly. Dr. Yathara of the Collective Science Division reviewed data from abandoned human research facilities. The equipment was primitive, but some of the research directions showed promise. Human scientists had been investigating areas that council science had dismissed as impossible or impractical. The mining operations on asteroid bases impressed even the Vorthan engineers. Humans had developed extraction techniques that were crude, but effective. They found ways to mine resources from locations that council surveys had written off as unprofitable. 3 months after the human departure, the first economic reports arrived. Production from former human territories exceeded all projections. Mining output increased by 30% under collective management. Agricultural yields rose by 25% with hegemony farming methods. The trade volume through former human space doubled as council shipping companies took control of the routes. Cargo that used to take weeks to move between distant sectors now flowed efficiently through the new network. Profits soared across all council economies. Zathara read the reports with growing satisfaction. The council had worried about human potential for years. Some members had even suggested accepting humans as junior partners in galactic affairs. Those voices now seemed foolish and overly cautious. Admiral Vexiran reported that the last human refugee ships had disappeared beyond the galactic rim. Long-range sensors detected no further human activity in council space. The entire species appeared to have withdrawn to whatever empty systems they could find in the void regions. The void regions were well known to council science. Empty space filled with dangerous radiation and spatial anomalies. No useful planets. No valuable resources. No strategic importance. If humans wanted to hide there, they were welcome to struggle for survival in the cosmic wasteland. The transformation of human territories proceeded ahead of schedule. New Brisbane became a major agricultural center under hegemony control. The Kepler research facilities were upgraded with ethereal technology. Mining operations expanded with collective efficiency. Governor Haxtell sent reports of minor technical problems in some human systems. Automated equipment would occasionally malfunction. Computer networks experienced periodic glitches. Environmental systems required constant adjustment. These issues were expected when dealing with inferior human technology. The problems were easily solved by replacing human equipment with superior council alternatives. Within a year, most traces of human presence would be completely erased. The territories would be fully integrated into council civilization, as if humans had never existed there. Zathara looked out at the stars from the council chambers and felt complete victory. The human problem was solved permanently. The species was contained and neutralized. The galaxy was safe for continued council, expansion, and prosperity. The council had gained more territory and resources than any single conquest in their history. They had done it without war or destruction. Future historians would remember this as the perfect example of how superior civilizations should handle primitive species. None of them noticed the small technical anomalies beginning to appear in their new territories: equipment failures, communication disruptions, system malfunctions. The problems seemed random and minor, just the expected difficulties of managing inferior human technology. The Galactic Council celebrated their triumph. While the first cracks in their victory began to show, Captain Elena Rodriguez received the emergency transmission while patrolling the outer edges of former human space. Her ship's sovereign authority was investigating the third cargo vessel disappearance this month. The Nixarian Trade Guild was losing ships at an alarming rate and demanded council protection. The missing ships had been carrying valuable resources from the former human mining colonies. Each vessel vanished without sending distress signals. No debris fields, no energy signatures, no trace of what happened to them. Elena found this pattern disturbing and impossible to explain. She stood on her bridge, reviewing the data from the previous disappearances. Lieutenant Marcus Webb worked at the sensor station trying to find any clue about what was destroying the cargo ships. The scanning equipment showed nothing unusual in the area where the ships had vanished. The Nixarian captain who reported the latest loss claimed his ship's sensors detected strange energy readings just before losing contact with the missing vessel. The readings did not match any known technology in council databases. Elena suspected the captain was mistaken or his equipment was malfunctioning. Elena ordered her ship to investigate the last known position of the missing cargo vessel. The area appeared completely normal. Empty space between two star systems with nothing that could threaten a ship. Yet 3 vessels had disappeared here in the past 6 weeks. Meanwhile, on the former human colony of New Brisbane, Governor Haxtell faced growing problems with the agricultural systems. The automated farming equipment kept breaking down despite constant repairs. The environmental controls fluctuated wildly, causing crop failures. Across entire continents, the hegemony engineers assured him that human technology was simply unreliable. They recommended replacing all the equipment with superior reptilian systems. But the replacement process was expensive and slow. Each month brought new failures and reduced harvests. Dr. Alan Pierce watched the aliens struggle with bitter satisfaction. He was one of the few humans allowed to remain as a technical consultant. The council believed they needed some human knowledge to operate the complex systems they had inherited. They were wrong about needing just some knowledge. Alan provided just enough help to keep the critical systems running while sabotaging everything else through subtle programming changes. The aliens thought they were dealing with random equipment failures. They had no idea that human systems were designed to resist outside control. The quantum communication networks across former human space began experiencing cascade failures. Messages arrived garbled or delayed by hours. Sometimes communications cut out completely for days at a time. The ethereal Commonwealth blamed solar interference and cosmic radiation. Their energy-based technicians tried to repair the networks, but found the human communication protocols impossibly complex. Each fix seemed to create 3 new problems. What should have been simple maintenance became a constant battle against failing technology. Captain Elena's investigation team discovered something that made no sense. Deep space sensors detected faint energy signatures that seemed to bend space around them. The readings appeared for seconds, then vanished completely. Her science officer had never seen anything like it in 20 years of council service. The energy signatures were too advanced for human technology, but no council species used anything similar. Elena began to suspect that unknown aliens might be operating in former human space. Perhaps scavengers from beyond council territory taking advantage of the confusion Admiral Vexiron received Elena's report with growing concern, if unknown. Aliens were attacking council shipping, then the entire expansion into human space was at risk. He authorized additional patrols and ordered all military units to investigate any unusual activity. The problems were not limited to missing ships and failing equipment. Economic reports from former human territories showed declining productivity across all sectors. Mining operations produced less or despite having more workers. Factories manufactured fewer goods even with upgraded equipment. Governor Hackstall called an emergency meeting with his department heads on New Brisbane. The colony that should have been their most profitable agricultural world was becoming a massive resource drain. Crop yields had dropped 40% in 6 months. Despite optimal weather conditions, the head of agricultural operations blamed human soil management techniques. The humans had apparently used complex biological systems to maintain soil fertility. Without understanding these systems, the hegemony farmers were depleting the land. Despite using advanced fertilizers, Dr. Alan Pierce attended the meeting as the human expert on colony operations. He explained that human agricultural systems were designed to work together in ways the aliens did not understand. Disrupting one part affected everything else in unpredictable ways. The aliens demanded detailed explanations of how the systems worked. Alan provided information that seemed helpful, but was actually incomplete. He told them enough truth to seem cooperative, while hiding the critical details that would actually solve their problems. Elena's patrol encountered another missing ship situation, but this time they arrived during the attack. Her sensors detected massive energy discharges unlike anything in Council databases. The attacking vessel was visible for only seconds before vanishing again. What? Elena's soul made no sense according to everything she knew about galactic technology. The attacking ship was enormous but moved with impossible speed and agility. Its weapons seemed to manipulate space-time itself rather than using conventional energy beams or projectiles. The attacking vessel made no attempt to communicate or negotiate. It simply destroyed the cargo ship and disappeared. Elena's crew tried to track it, but their sensors could not lock onto whatever stealth technology it was using. Elena sent an urgent report to Admiral Vexiron describing the encounter. The attacking ship was clearly using technology far beyond anything humans had possessed 2 years ago. Yet it had appeared in former human space and seemed to specifically target Council vessels. The Admiral ordered Elena to investigate the outer edges of the void regions where the last human refugees had been detected. Perhaps these attackers were connected to the humans somehow. Maybe the humans had found allies among unknown alien species. Elena's ship approached the boundary between Council space and the void regions. Long-range sensors detected faint energy signatures in the distance. The readings suggested massive artificial structures in areas that Council surveys had reported as empty space. The structures were too far away to examine closely, but they appeared to be larger than any space stations in Council territory. Elena wondered how such massive constructions could exist in regions that were supposed to be uninhabitable and worthless. Dr. Alan Pierce received coded messages through hidden communication channels that the aliens had not discovered. The messages confirmed what he had hoped. Humanity was not hiding in the void regions waiting to die. They were building something that would change everything. The failures in former human space were not random equipment problems. They were the result of humanity finally activating the hidden protocols built into every system they had ever created. The aliens thought they had inherited human technology, but they had actually inherited humanity's trap. Admiral Vexiron stood in the command center of the Catherian fleet flagship, watching the tactical display with growing alarm. 17 Council vessels had vanished in the past month alone. Entire trade convoys disappeared overnight, leaving no trace of their destruction or capture. The attacks were becoming bolder and more frequent. Unknown vessels struck deep inside Council territory, then vanished before response fleets could arrive. The attackers seemed to know exactly where Council ships would be, and when they would be most vulnerable. Vexiron had assembled the largest investigation fleet in Council history. 200 warships from 6 different species would sweep the void regions and find whoever was responsible for these attacks. The Admiral was certain they would discover some primitive scavenger species that had gotten lucky with a few raids. Captain Elena Rodriguez commanded one of the scout ships in the investigation fleet. Her vessel Sovereign Authority had encountered the attackers before and survived. Vexiron wanted her expertise to help identify the enemy when they found them. The fleet moved toward the edge of the void regions, where long-range sensors had detected massive energy signatures. The readings suggested artificial structures of incredible size hidden in the cosmic wasteland beyond Council space. Elena felt growing unease as they approached the unknown territory. Dr. Nicole Webb worked frantically in her laboratory aboard a hidden research station deep in the void regions. The quantum computers around her processed calculations that would have been impossible 5 years ago. Humanity had made breakthrough discoveries that changed their understanding of physics itself. The void regions were not empty wasteland as the Council believed. They contained exotic matter concentrations and dark energy fields that human science had learned to harness. What the aliens saw as cosmic radiation was actually a power source beyond their comprehension. Captain Sam Tucker received the alert that Council forces were approaching human space. His ship Freedom's Price was one of the new dreadnoughts built in the hidden shipyards. The vessel was larger than any Council warship but used technology that made size almost irrelevant. Sam looked out at the construction sites surrounding his ship. Orbital habitats the size of small moons housed millions of humans who had spent 5 years building the most advanced civilization in galactic history. Shipyards stretched across entire asteroid fields, producing vessels that redefined what was possible. The humans had not been hiding in the void regions waiting to die. They had been growing stronger while the Council celebrated their empty victory. Every day brought new discoveries and technological advances that put humanity decades ahead of their former level. Admiral Vexiron's fleet detected the first artificial structures on their long-range sensors. The readings showed construction on a scale that seemed impossible, space stations larger than cities, shipyards that dwarfed anything in Council space, industrial complexes that processed entire asteroids. Elena stared at her sensor readings in disbelief. The structures were clearly artificial, but built with technology far beyond anything the Council possessed. Whatever species lived in the void regions had capabilities that made Council science look primitive. The investigation fleet moved closer to get detailed scans of the mysterious structures. Vexiron ordered his ships to maintain defensive formations but avoid any aggressive actions. He wanted to make contact with these unknown aliens and learn their intentions. Sam Tucker received authorization from Human Command to reveal themselves to the approaching Council fleet. 5 years of secret preparation were about to be tested. Humanity would show the galaxy what they had become during their exile in the void. The Freedoms. Price emerged from the shadow of a massive shipyard and moved toward the Council fleet. Sam stood on his bridge watching the tactical display as his ship approached the aliens who had forced humanity into exile. His crew worked calmly at stations that controlled weapons beyond Council. Understanding, Elena's sensors detected the approaching vessel and her breath caught in her throat. The ship was enormous but moved with impossible grace and speed. Its hull seemed to bend light around it, making accurate readings difficult. The energy signatures were unlike anything in Council databases. Admiral Vexiron received the transmission from the unknown vessel. The communication came through on standard Council frequencies, but the signal was crystal clear despite the distance. The sender identified himself as Captain Sam Tucker of the Human Void Fleet. The Admiral felt shock and disbelief wash over him. Humans had been confirmed as primitive refugees fleeing to empty space. They could not possibly possess technology advanced enough to build the structures his fleet was detecting. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Sam's message was simple and direct. The Council fleet was trespassing in human territory and must withdraw immediately. Any attempt to approach the human colonies would be considered an act of war. The humans offered no negotiation and no compromise. Vexiron opened a communication channel to respond. He demanded explanations for the attacks on Council shipping. He wanted to know how humans had acquired such advanced technology. He threatened military action if the humans did not surrender immediately. Sam Tucker smiled grimly as he listened to the Admiral's demands. The aliens still thought they were dealing with the same weak species they had driven into exile. They were about to learn how wrong they had been about human potential, the freedoms. Price demonstrated its capabilities by performing maneuvers that violated everything the Council knew about physics. The massive ship seemed to fold space around itself, moving instantly across vast distances. Its weapons charged with energy that made space itself ripple and bend. Elena watched in amazement, as the human vessel displayed technology that should have been impossible. Her science officer confirmed that the ship was somehow manipulating space-time itself. The humans had achieved breakthroughs that put them centuries ahead of Council science. Admiral Vexiron ordered his fleet to attack. Positions. 200 Council warships moved into battle formation against the single human vessel. The Admiral was confident that superior numbers would overcome whatever technological advantages the humans possessed. Sam Tucker authorized weapons release. Without hesitation, the Freedom's Price engaged the entire Council fleet with weapons that turned physics into a weapon. Space-time distortions crushed enemy ships like insects. Temporal fields aged vessels into scrap metal in seconds. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. The entire Council investigation fleet was destroyed or disabled without the human ship taking any damage. Vexiron's flagship drifted powerless. As its crew tried to understand what had happened to them, Sam opened a final communication to the surviving Council personnel. He told them to return to their space with a message. Humanity had departed quietly because they believed in peace. They had stayed away because the Council demanded it. But now the Council had come looking for war and found it. General Patricia Wells received the report of the engagement from her command post in the Void regions. The Council had finally learned that humanity still existed, but they did not yet understand what humanity had become. That lesson would come soon enough. 3 years had passed since the destruction of Admiral Vexiron's investigation fleet, and the Galactic Council was dying. Former Council Speaker Zethara sat in the emergency session chamber watching delegates argue desperately about their collapsing civilization. The great assembly that once ruled the galaxy had become a gathering of desperate survivors. The economic collapse had been swift and total. Without the vast resources and trade networks from former human territory, the Council economies crashed like dominoes falling. Worlds that had prospered for centuries now struggled to feed their populations. The complex supply chains that connected Council space required human logistics expertise that no longer existed. Major Bill Harrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the pathetic remains of what had once been the mighty Galactic Council fleet. A few dozen outdated warships drifted near the border of human space, begging for an audience with the Void Confederation leadership. Their proud formations from years past were now desperate refugee convoys. The humans who had once called themselves refugees and outcasts now controlled technology that made the Council look like primitive savages. Dark energy manipulation allowed human ships to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Quantum folding drives moved vessels across the galaxy instantly. Temporal shielding made human colonies exist outside normal time. Captain Elena Rodriguez had survived the destruction of the investigation fleet and spent 3 years trying to convince the Council to negotiate with humanity. Her warnings about human capabilities fell on deaf ears until it was far too late. Now she served as one of the few Council officers authorized to speak with human representatives. The transformation of human civilization amazed even those who had lived through it. Dr. Nicole Webb worked in laboratories that existed in pocket dimensions within asteroids. Her research teams studied the fundamental forces of the universe itself. They had unlocked secrets that allowed humans to reshape reality according to their will. Colonel Jack Peterson commanded the human forces that monitored Council space from hidden observation posts. His ships watched alien worlds struggle with failing infrastructure and collapsing governments. The Council members who had once seemed so powerful now appeared helpless and primitive. The Council's attempts at military solutions had been disasters beyond imagination. Admiral Susan Clark's fleet had demonstrated complete mastery over space and time when desperate Council forces tried one final attack. Enemy vessels aged centuries and seconds while others became trapped in temporal loops that repeated their destruction forever. Zathara received reports from across former Council territory that painted a picture of total civilizational collapse. The Vorthan Collective's hive worlds were starving because their food distribution networks had depended on human shipping routes. The ethereal Commonwealth's energy beings were losing cohesion as their power sources failed without human maintenance. The Catherian Empire that had once seemed so mighty was reduced to controlling a handful of core worlds. Their military machine depended on resources from territories they could no longer defend. Reptilian warriors who had conquered dozens of species now struggled to maintain order on their homeworld. Governor Haxtell had become a refugee when New Brisbane finally collapsed completely. The agricultural systems that humans had built were too complex for alien understanding. Without proper maintenance, the planet's ecosystem failed and became uninhabitable. Millions of hegemony colonists fled as the world died around them. Dr. Alan Pierce emerged from hiding to meet with Council representatives who finally understood they needed human help to survive. The same aliens who had dismissed human intelligence now begged for technical assistance to keep their basic systems running. Alan smiled coldly as he explained the price of their arrogance. The Council's desperate diplomats offered everything they had in exchange for human assistance. They promised full recognition of human equality. They offered tribute payments and territorial concessions. They begged for mercy from the species they had tried to control and contain. Major Bill Harrison delivered humanity's response to these pathetic offers. The Void Confederation had evolved beyond the need for anything the Council could provide. Human civilization now existed on a level that made Council resources irrelevant. They had transcended the limitations that once made them vulnerable. The final irony was that humanity's greatest strength had always been their ability to adapt and overcome any challenge. The Council had tried to limit human potential by forcing them into exile. Instead, they had created the perfect conditions for humanity to evolve beyond recognition. Captain Sam Tucker led the human fleets that emerged from the Void regions not as conquerors but as the new guardians of galactic order. The ships that had once hidden in cosmic wasteland now patrolled trade routes and protected weaker species from the chaos left by Council collapse. Elena Rodriguez met with human representatives to negotiate the surrender terms for the few remaining Council worlds. She had spent her career serving aliens who claimed superiority over humanity. Now she faced humans who had become something beyond her comprehension. The humans offered a choice to the surviving Council members. They could accept protected status under human guidance and receive the assistance needed to rebuild their civilizations. Or they could continue their decline into extinction while humanity watched with indifference. Era signed the documents that formally dissolved the Galactic Council and placed remaining Council worlds under human protection. The proud speaker, who had once celebrated humanity's exile, now became a client ruler serving human interests. The transformation was complete and irreversible. Colonel Jack Peterson stood in the command center of the primary human habitat and watched status reports from across the galaxy. Former Council worlds were slowly stabilizing under human oversight. New colonies were being established with technology that surpassed anything the galaxy had seen. The ultimate price had not been paid in blood or destruction, but in the complete reversal of galactic power. The Council had forced evolution into isolation and created something far beyond their ability to control or understand. They had mistaken human kindness for weakness and learned too late the cost of that error. Dr. Nicole Webb sent the final research reports to human colonies across multiple dimensions. Her teams had solved the deepest mysteries of existence itself. Humanity was no longer bound by the physical laws that limited other species. They had become something new and impossible. The galaxy belonged to those who could hold it, and humanity had proven they could hold anything. The council members who survived would live under human protection as the very thing they had tried to make humanity become. The circle was complete and justice had been served. Admiral Susan Clark looked out at the stars from her flagship and smiled. Humanity had departed quietly from their old homes because they believed in peace. They had returned as the undisputed masters of the galaxy because the council had taught them that sometimes peace required overwhelming strength.